filmtalkies0.com. The film begins by showing us Brown when he was little, which was looking for a new home during his Brown journey, met Panda, so that he was very happy since he was equal to the panda tells him that he is trapped and that he cannot get out to what childbirth tries to help him, but we see that there is a train coming towards them. Two start screaming for help and are heard by Polar, which goes in way to help them and manages to save Panda from the train tracks after they start to run, but the bears they tire very quickly, so Polar it climb on top of him and continue running. But we see that it was only a Pardo dream. Look at the calendar. And he realizes that the thing is the day of today, so he leaves with his brothers to tell them that they were late. Then the bears speed off from his house, and we see that along the way bother many people because are not careful and manage to reach time to the inauguration of a truck of food. The owner begins to tell them that it is a food from Canada and that in that country they love the bears of. Suddenly many people arrive from the city which are annoying with the bears because of all the mess what they caused after the police arrive with the file of complaints of others, and they realize that they have been behaving very badly, and that comes the limousine in Omnium, and we see that all people can get excited about see him. Bard starts to say that he is sick of being treated like this and that only in Omnium he gets away with it. Later the bears begin to say that they will make a viral video to also be popular. It gets dark and we see that find making an antenna satellite dish to stream your video on the whole city. Then part starts the transmission and direct the signal to a satellite to be able to appear in all devices in the city. We begin to see what they find doing different viral challenges internet, and that people seem like them, but suddenly a problem and causes burning people's devices after the antenna explodes and the power begins to go out of the city. The next day we see in the news they have a meeting with the bears because of the trouble they caused. They apologize and say no, it will happen again, but all the people they are angry because they cause many problems. Suddenly opens the door and we see a person arrive, which is presented as the trout agent. He starts to say he's from Animal Control Department and take care of the bear problem in the trout. People tell people that it is not natural for animals to live in the city, so he will take care of relocate them to a reserve. Every people support the idea and say no, they want more bears after the bears are taken away by the police and put on their vehicle. We begin to see what they take to the bears and that their friends they find angry. We returned with the bears and we realize that Charlie he stole the car so he could help his friends. It gets dark and they start to disguise so that they do not recognize him, but when she gets sad because miss home after Pardos say you get the idea of moving to Canada already, that in that country everyone loves bears. What Panda tells him they don't have passports, but Pardo replies that it is not necessary since they are animals. We begin to see that the bears modify the vehicle to pass unnoticed while pandas be angry since he loves each other stay because of what he tells his brothers that they leave without him. Later we see that Pandas regrets and decides accompany his brothers to Canada a day. Next police stands investigating the bear house and realize that they left. Suddenly we see the team arrive trout people and gives them the order that find the runaway bears, while that the bears are still on their way to Canada Panda tells his brothers that they must be discreet, but they want to visit many places during the journey after the bears arrive at a stop, and we realize that the Trout People team found asking about them is the turn of the bears, and we see that they manage to disguise, but the guard realizes account that it is about them, so he tells the boss about him while he bears take advantage of being distracted, and they're back on the road. Panda starts to say that they should go out of the road so that they do not take them by train. But we see that they begin to fight for him cell phone, which causes them to almost have an accident and get out of the road. We begin to see that the vehicle goes out of control and crash to the ground suddenly. Hear a noise and realize there's some kind of lights, so you know they are on their way to see what the bears are. Arrive at the place and say that it is a kind of club in that comes a cow which tells them that it will help them so they can enter. They enter the place and we see that it is a party of animals that are famous on the internet. We begin to see that the bears are living with the other animals, but suddenly they have the party since they are realize that they are not really famous. Parto begins to tell them what happened, and he says that only they all want to get to Canada. Animals begin to clap and they say they will repair your car so that can continue on their way in search of their new home after the bears. They go to sleep and we see that they are worried that they won't be able to find a new home. Parto gets out of bed and he has seen his brothers who arrived the police because they were reported for a rat. Suddenly the animals they start playing music to distract the police and that the bears can escape. We see that the raccoons repaired their vehicle and that they put some improvements after the bears raise the vehicle, and the raccoon tells them yes, he has some problem that he only presses the button. The eyes start to go, but Trout People realize and order it. His team go after them. We're leaving with the bears and Polar realizes that they come following them for what begins to speed up to try to lose them in. The Trout People order them to stop, but they ignore him and start to go faster. We begin to see that the bears find themselves in a chase and that they press the button that the raccoon said, which causes a defense system and that can stop to the police except for the vehicle of the Trout agent, which hits his vehicle and causes Pan to be about to drop. The Trout agent comes out of his vehicle and is about to capture Panda, but suddenly the policeman brakes because they ran out of road. Bears start to fall. A button is active and they are saved. Thanks to the shot, the vehicle of the bears breaks down and they realize that they are very close to reaching Canada. They get very happy and go on their way, making the Tower of Bears, but upon arrival, we see that they do not let them pass due to who do not have a passport. Suddenly their car explodes and then it starts to rain. So Pandas gets mad as she says, who always get in trouble for their guilt. Panda says they are not brothers and that they only invented that story to feel better for what they were. Sad in that we see people arrive. Trout, which tells them that the found thanks to Panda's cell phone. They are then taken by the police to a animal control center where they are locked in cages. The agent of Trout tells Parto to say goodbye and here he will send them to different places. As he falls, they lock him up with more bears of his brown species. Begins to cry and suddenly we see that he imagines himself as a child, which begins to motivate him to rescue his brothers, since when they met they made a promise that always comes brothers. Two is filled with motivation and says that rescue his brothers. In that we see that The other bears begin to motivate him and what Pardo gets out of the cage. While the trout people are about to take him away, but suddenly we see all the bears come to help them. Pardo tells him to return to his brothers, but the trout agent takes out a gun and begins to approach them. Brown grabs an axe and throws it at him. Polar Witch uses it to free itself and to be able to get out of his cage after flying. He frees his brother and they get off the ship to face the trout people. In that we see that trout people are trapped in a cage, but suddenly the whole place starts to burn. Then we see Officer Murphy arrive. So they decide to make a tower of bears while in the city the people sell the news what is happening, and we see that if they were achieved save after the bears received in first aid and police takeaway, reporters suddenly arrive to interview them and tell them that they are some heroes. We begin to see that the bears go back to the city and that they were received with much affection by all people. As final scene, we can see that the bears were accepted into the city and who live in harmony with humans. That's how the movie ends. Forget to subscribe and leave likes, and I commented that more movies would like see on the channel. I greet you this video. Shadow Queen Jerome Adriano Maria Lorraine Margie Caesar and Charles Castaneda. Do not forget to comment on the ones that want to be in the next video. Thanks for your watching time. Subscribe my channel.